Good evening. Calling the meeting to order of the October 11th, 2023 Southborough Zoning Board of Appeals. Just briefly, this is a hybrid meeting. Those wishing to watch or participate remotely can do so by accessing the meeting link at ma.southborough.civic+.com/674/virtual-meetings. Just very briefly, this room has a maximum approved occupancy of 49 people. So those wishing to attend virtually can do so at that link. We don't currently have that problem, but basically we have enough chairs for 49 people. There's not a place for somebody to sit. They're not going to be able to. Okay. Good deal. Oh, yes, you're right. So do you know what's the status of the planning board? Do they have a quorum?
They do.
Okay.
So I'm going to move them over so they can convene.
Okay.
Waiting for me.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Lara and David. The planning board is now in session. Thanks.
Okay.
Going on. The Board of Appeals of the Town of Southborough will hold a public hearing via virtual Zoom meeting Wednesday, October 11th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. with regards to the petitions of the residences at Park Central LLC located at 0 Turnpike Road, 0 Flag Road, and off Route 495, Southborough, Mass. The petitioner is seeking a comprehensive permit under MGL Chapter 40B, Sections 20 to 23 and 760 CMR 56. Construct a 200-unit ownership community for mixed income residents. The property is located in the industrial park and industrial district.
Oops. Before you get started with the applicant making a presentation, I just have some administrative things I'd like to take care of before we commence. As I mentioned, the room's limited to 49 people. We do have the ability to get into the call meeting room for subsequent meetings, so we can move into a bigger location. Just for clarity, for those who are on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, you have just as much right to speak publicly during these hearings as anybody who's here can do. We have been holding meetings on Zoom for the past couple of years, and people have been able to speak. So just wanted to clear that up. The way I'd like to have this run is I would like the meetings to run no later than 9 o'clock. Exceptions will be made. It seems that like we're close on something, or that more time is needed to really settle an issue. But my view is by doing something at 10:30 at night, we don't really get the best outcome for the town. We don't get the best outcome for applicants. If we happen to run out of time and we don't have time to take all of the public comments and questions, and we will try to, but we may run out of time. If that is the case, there will be time allocated at the beginning of the subsequent meeting to take those questions. You will have the opportunity to speak, but if we feel like it's getting late and people are getting a little bit off, if it just feels like it's getting a little bit tired, we will move that to the next hearing. So just to be clear, the hearing, how it typically works, the applicant will present materials, board members will ask questions of the applicant. The planning board is in session. The planning board can ask questions as a board because they are in session. Residents are also able to ask questions of the applicant or the board. Anyone wishing to speak must first state their name and address. And tonight, especially, I would ask you to just be as clear as possible. It would be helpful if you come up here to the lectern to speak. And if you're not a resident, what is your, who do you represent? What is your role? Just briefly, I am asking that everybody be respectful, that we, the board members and to the applicants, that you can be, I understand there can be emotions and that's fine, but I just ask that you please be respectful. And something that I know we've seen a lot of in the past is, if somebody's already made an argument, please don't come up and repeat the same thing. If you have something different to offer, that's fine. But please try to avoid for everyone's time to repeat the previous arguments. So again, I just ask that everybody do their best to try to keep the temperature low, and we'll have time for everyone's opinions and deliberation. So, okay, you have something you'd like to present.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present the application on behalf of the residences at Park Central LLC. I want to apologize. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. My name is Jason Panos. For the record, I'm practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I represent the applicant, the residences at Park Central LLC, and the property owner, Park Central Investment LLC. And I want to explain briefly why your packets are so large. We wanted to hit the ground running, and we wanted to allow the opportunity of the board to thoroughly vet and review the application before you. So we provided you with a traffic study, stormwater management, the most comprehensive plans we could possibly provide, and it all speaks for itself. So we will try to do our best tonight to kind of boil it down to its essentials, and appreciate this opportunity again. As you heard in the notice reading, this is a matter of an application for a comprehensive permit under General Laws, Chapter 40B, and regulations at 760 CMR 56, proposing a 200-unit ownership dwelling unit development on parcels located at 0 Turnpike Road, 0 Flag Road, and off Route 495, which is located in the town's IP Industrial Park Zoning District and the Industrial Zoning District. The application was filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals and the town clerk on September 18th of this year, with a supplement filed being the environmental analysis on September 28th, when submission compliant with the town's comprehensive permit regulations and guidelines and comprehensive permit application instructions was complete. And to that point, I really want to thank Lara Davis, who has done an amazing job facilitating this application. She's really been a pleasure to work with, and I look forward to continuing to work with her and you as this process unfolds. The proposed development under the application is filed under the Boston Federal Home Loan Bank's New England Fund Program and is deemed consistent with local needs pursuant to the project eligibility letter, which it issued on February 8th, 2023, pursuant to which compliance with provisions of applicable regulations was concluded in favor of the proposed development. With me tonight, through the applicant who chose through its principals and assembled the development team, having significant experience in the management, development, maintenance, planning of multifamily housing and affordable housing subject to fair market housing rules, laws, and regulations, each of whom will work with the board and the town through the town's peer review process. The applicant, through its principals, will manage the development from inception, construction through the completion and sale. With me tonight is John Cusich of Bowler Engineering. And he is the development engineer. He'll discuss the technical aspects of the application, including the development, civil plan, site plans, subdivision control plans, stormwater management, utilities, and landscaping. Richard Rankin of Rankin Associates is also here with us tonight and is the development architect and will discuss the development design elements and lighting, and will work with the development team to bring the development to completion. Kevin D'Andre and Samuel Gregorio. Kevin's with us. Samuel is online virtually of tech. Also here, we'll just, as I indicated, we'll discuss the traffic impacts and we'll walk you through their traffic analysis. Scott Goddard, who is not here with us tonight, of Goddard Consulting, is the environmental and wetlands consultant, and he will manage the portions of the application subject to the Wetlands Protection Act and needing notice of intent filings and so forth. Just a brief 40B overview. This application is brought to you under General Laws Chapter 40B, which authorizes the issuance of a single or comprehensive local permit issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals with exemptions from generally applicable local bylaws and regulations, which was enacted to facilitate the construction of low and moderate income housing and avoid perceived long delays in developers' proposals to construct that affordable housing. In your packet of application materials, are the waivers we are requesting from the local zoning bylaws and other affected bylaws, and that is in Appendix N. As I mentioned, the Mass Housing Project Eligibility Letter, which is dated February 8th, which is attached as Appendix A, establishes the jurisdictional requirements of 760 CMR 5604, which has allowed us to file the application and be here tonight. And we have satisfied those jurisdictional requirements, being that the applicant is a limited dividend organization, the development is fundable by a subsidizing agency under a low or moderate income subsidy program, being the New England Fund in this case, and the applicant has control of the site. The Residences at Park Central LLC has the development parcel under agreement with the property owner, Park Central Investment. The zoning board possesses the authority to act for all local boards, which is broadly defined to include practically all relevant boards and officials throughout the town. Consistency with local needs is a central issue, and I've gone into that in my application materials. If you are interested, you are certainly represented by capable counsel, but that can be found at 760 CMR 5603. Southborough's current affordable housing stock and achievement towards its housing production goals is not currently consistent with local needs, and the board must hear the instant application. Being about 77 units short of its subsidized housing inventory mandate of 10% of year-round housing stock to be set aside as affordable. The application is presented, as I mentioned, under the New England Fund program administered through Mass Housing's homeownership program, a funding guarantee source for construction of comprehensive permit developments, which requires that 25% of the units be subject to use restrictions to ensure that they remain in a community's affordable housing stock and must be sold or rented on a fair and open basis. The Residences at Park Central is not subsidized housing. It is a mix of market rate and affordable housing designed to assist town residents and regional residents earning at or below 80% of the area median income. And the application we put forth tonight is truly consistent, and we made sure that we aligned this application and the development proposal with the goals articulated in the town's housing production plan. And they are set forth in bullet points behind you, but in much greater detail in the application materials in front of you. The town really worked hard, I could tell, in identifying barriers and obstacles to the production of affordable housing, and I believe we've risen to the occasion and are going to help the town meet the needs articulated and the goals articulated in that housing production plan. And certainly help you certify that housing production plan. Another key feature of the proposal in front of you is that we will work with the town, and if it were a unilateral choice, we would do it, but we have to work with the town to ensure that 70% of the affordable units are subject to a local preference. That's 35 of the 50 units. Those 50 units will count, by the way, to the town's subsidized housing inventory. 35 units we would like to be set aside as available to current residents of the town, people living in the community at the time of application for the lottery, municipal employees, teachers, firefighters, police officers, frontline workers, people who grew up here but can't afford to live here any longer, employees of local businesses, households with children attending community schools. Of course, they will have to meet the other income eligibility requirements, but we really feel strongly that this will be of benefit to the town. A brief description of the application and where we're at now. If you could advance to the slide. So this is generally the site location and what's around it. The proposed site is commuter friendly because it's conveniently located and accessible to and from Turnpike Road, Interstate Route 9, located on the westbound side and located near and accessible to Interstate Route 95. Additionally, the site is located within 1.5 miles of Worcester Regional Transportation Authority bus routes and within 2 miles of an MBTA commuter rail stop with access to Boston and other points west to Worcester and east through Boston. Additionally, Route 9 is a commercial center of employment, supporting local businesses through the provision of expanded housing choices that serves a diverse local workforce is a housing production plan goal served by the development's close proximity to those job opportunities. And you can see this map in Appendix K in your application. The site also included in this map, this depiction, is in close proximity to shopping opportunities and municipal services, restaurants, schools, open space at Beals Preserve, which features a diverse ecosystem, including Wachusett's channel frontage upon meadows, woodlands, and trails that link to the Sudbury Reservoir Trail and Burroughs Loop Trail. You could advance to the next slides. Thank you. This is an aerial view of the site. As you can see, it's highly vegetated, it's overgrown, and is not being used for much of anything at the moment. Some more pictures of where we're at. The existing conditions. So the overall site is comprised of an aggregate of 101 plus or minus acres. Again, of underutilized, overgrown, densely vegetated, unimproved land situated in the town at 0 Turnpike Road, 0 Flag Road, and off Interstate 495, from which a 19.7 acre parcel is proposed to be subdivided off that greater site for the proposed development as depicted in the subdivision plans, Appendix G in your packet. The site is outside of designated special flood hazard areas and as such is considered low risk. Stormwater is currently not managed on site and currently spills off the property in many different directions, and you'll hear more about that in the technical presentation. The site is located in a pretty diverse neighborhood consisting of single-family homes directly to the north and east of Blackthorn Drive, Tower Road, Bantry, and Flag Road. Industrial and commercial uses and structures are located directly to its south and southwest, including a hotel located between Flag Road and Park Central Drive, fronting on Turnpike Route 9. The proposed development. So that is the area outlined in red is the proposed is the actual overall site. That's the 101 acres. The yellow areas, that being those windy roadways, and the area in the middle, if I could just, a little confusing, but if I could just point out this area here is where the proposed units are sited. The roadway is part of the development parcel. And the development, as indicated in the notice that was read, is a 200-unit development proposed in 4 buildings consisting of 3 buildings housing 51 units each. That's buildings A, C, and D, and a 4th building housing 47 units. Buildings A, C, and D each have 35 2-bedroom units for a total of 105 2-bedroom units and 16 3-bedroom units for a total of 48 3-bedroom units. Building B has a total of 33 2-bedroom units and 14 3-bedroom units, including a total of 12 ADA accessible units spread throughout all of the buildings as depicted in the design plans, which you're going to hear a lot more about tonight. 420 interior and covered spaces are proposed. In addition, included in that 420 number are also exterior spaces. So both interior and exterior spaces for a parking ratio of 201 spaces per unit. Larry, if you want to advance to the next slide. There you go. Yeah, that's okay. No, it's good for people to get the sense. Actually, if you want to advance to the next, there you go. Thank you. Each building is configured as 4 residential floors over a podium structure, which is where the covered parking is proposed. Provision for 16 accessible parking spaces is made in compliance with applicable law and design standards. Further, the proposed development features open space, recreational, and pet-friendly amenities. You'll hear a little more about that. An off-site wastewater treatment plant. Actually, Larry, if you want to go back to that plan. So the wastewater treatment plant is located closer to the cul-de-sac, right there. Yep. And stormwater appurtenances, which are located pretty much right here. And you'll hear a lot more about that as well. The development proposes direct access from Flag Road via Route 9 westbound in Southborough to Park Central Drive. It's a gently winding roadway, which is also accessible from Blackthorn Drive via the proposed Blackthorn Drive extension. And this would be the proposed Blackthorn Drive extension. And this is the proposed interior roadway being John Bullen Road. That basically, through the extension as well, connects the neighborhoods and the development to Route 9. The entry off Flag Road will be designed as a private development entrance with robust landscaping, which will be employed throughout the site to improve the visual impact of the development to adjacent properties. Sidewalks are proposed throughout the site to allow for easy pedestrian access to buildings and parking areas. Sustainable design strategies, and you'll hear about that again in more detail, include the integration of proposed exterior finishes featuring natural products such as fiber, cement panels, masonry, glass, all HVAC equipment and appliances for each unit will carry Energy Star certifications, and the development will seek certification as an Energy Star building designation. Minimal site disturbances are proposed to allow for the natural site topography to remain and to serve as a buffer between development and adjacent neighborhoods. As I mentioned earlier, 50 of the 200 units are proposed designated as affordable to those residents earning at or below 80% of the area median income. And those 50 affordable units will count against the 77 unit deficiency currently evident in the town's SHR. As I indicated, this permitting is through Chapter 40B and accompanying regulations and and we are entitled to ask for local waivers, which again are put forward in Appendix N in your packets. And the comprehensive permit may provide all local permits and approvals pursuant to those laws, which is why we're seeking that subdivision control through the ZBA, where typically you would seek it through the planning board. And as otherwise more fully set forth in your application. There are a couple of critical deadlines I'd like to call out. The board, through CMR 760 CMR 56053, has 180 days to open and close its public hearing. It's October 11th tonight. That would mean that absent any agreements between the applicant and the board, we have a deadline of April 8th, 2024 to close this hearing. And then the board has 40 days from the close of its public hearing to render a decision. With that concludes my preliminary discussion, and through the chair, I would like to invite Richard Rankin to talk about the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, members of the board. And Richard Rankin, Rankin Associates, providing architectural design services for development. You could go to the next slide. I'll spend some time talking in an overview fashion with regard to building design, at the risk of being repetitive.
I'm sorry, where are you from?
I'm sorry. 77 Washburn Street, Northborough. Okay. So that being said, at the risk of being repetitive on some of these items that Jason's already spoken about, as previously stated, development consists of 4 buildings, 200 units, 3 buildings with 51 units, 1 building with 47 units. Each building consists of 4 stories over podium parking, which is partially below grade. This acts to mitigate the building's natural into the natural site topography using new and existing landscaping forms and the existing topography. We have a total of 420 parking spaces, 200 of which are covered, 220 are site located. All facets of building design comply with Massachusetts Architectural Access Board requirements. The building facades are designed to modulate and recesses, varying colors textures, materials, balconies to mitigate the overall mass of the buildings. And this is also to visually reduce the height and scale for better transition between adjoining sites on the east side. And primarily single family dwellings. The exterior materials will consist of masonry at the base floors. We're in contact with the grade, along with composite, horizontal, and vertical siding, energy efficient windows, doors, and architectural details, and trim of similar composite materials. Materials will be selected to provide energy efficiency and sustainability, along with low maintenance characteristics, and to provide energy conscious overall design. The development will utilize high performance envelope systems, high efficiency energy and cooling systems, Energy Star appliances as been mentioned on both inside and out. And the project will meet or exceed the requirements of the current energy stretch code, as well as the specialized opt-in code that's adopted by the town. So, as I said, we have some preliminary design plans that I'll go through in some detail. As stated, the garage levels are partially below level with secure automatic entry doors. Each building has 50 spaces, 2 of which are accessible spaces. The also contains an elevator lobby, to provide access to all levels, mechanical space, and trash collection facilities. Next slide. Our typical floor plan. It's typical of our buildings A, C, and D. Building D has a slight modification, which I'll show you in the next slide, but typically these buildings are great access to a 2-story common lobby. Contains an elevator and egress stair. There's mail facilities, trash facilities, and includes an egress stair. As discussed, the floor configurations consist of 2 and 3 bedroom apartment style units and include the required affordable and accessible unit types. There are 2 additional egress stairs connected by a common corridor with access to additional storage units on each floor. Next slide. Building D, building which I mentioned, is similar, however, it contains our sales office adjacent to the lobby, a fitness center, and an area for maintenance. Second level plans are fairly typical. We have a 2-story lobby, as I mentioned, so there's an overlook. Otherwise, the plans are the same as the first floor. Next slide, please. 3rd and 4th floors are also similar, as this is a stacked plan. And next slide, please. 4th floor is really the only difference, whereby we provide live workspace off of the lobby, which contains a work area, small kitchen, a meeting room. Slide shows the units in enlarged fashion. As it mentions, it's a combination of 2 and 3 bedroom units. We have 2 bedroom, 2 bath units. We have 2 bedroom, 2 bath with den units. We have a 2 bedroom, 2 bath with a den, which is slightly modified. And we have 3 bedroom, 2 bath units. Again, 50 affordable units and accessible. The preliminary elevations show typical building elevations here. Floor height typically is 10'6". So that on the entrance side, the total building height is approximately 43 feet. On the rear, the elevation will vary according to site topography and proposed grading. This slide shows the entry elevation, fix the materials, the balconies, the windows, entrance feature. And this perspective view shows, again, the same entrance side, but at an angle to show a greater view of typical building scale, massing. And with that, I'll turn it back to Jason. Hear about you, so.
Thank you, Rick. And again, through the chair, if I could turn the technical presentation over to John Cusick from Bowler Engineering.
Thank you, Jason. For the record, John Cusick with Bowler Engineering. I am a professional engineer and with the company. We have offices at 352 Pike Road. Southborough. So the existing conditions, I won't take a step back. I'll keep the presentation very, very high level. In the first hearing, just keep it at a high level, certainly get any further detail at the end of the presentation that you might like to hear about. So existing conditions, this is
Your question? John, where are you from?
I am from Southborough, our office is in Southborough.
Your office is in Southport, but where are you?
Where am I from? I'm from Franklin.
Sorry?
Franklin?
Franklin, thank you.
So existing conditions, you had heard about that earlier, the overall parcel is about 101 acres. And the development parcel is approximately 92. Currently on site, it is, the site was partially developed, I want to say back in the 1980s. So there is some infrastructure that was there. You can see there's a road carved in. There's some basins that were put in there. There's a water line that goes a little bit up the roadway. So it was partially developed, never finished. And as you've heard, it's really just started to grow in some areas more mature, some more new. Next slide, please. This is just a existing conditions plan that shows contours and a little bit more detail that is within the packet. That could be able to read much of that on the screen, but that just shows some topography on the site and where the proposed roadway you can see carved in fits within that. So part of the site plan, it's really two sets of plans that were submitted. We have a subdivision plan as part of this, and then we have the actual development plan for the homes. So to create the development, we are bringing a subdivision road into the site. So John Boland Way is extending from Park Central Drive into the site. It's also going to connect to Blackthorn Drive. As you had seen, that will be a gated connection, so there won't be free flow through there. There's also a connection to Flag Road, which you'll see that's an exit only. The proposed road is approximately 30 feet wide, and the right of way is about 60 feet wide. And no stormwater treatment on the property. About 3,500 linear feet from the end of the existing Park Central Drive to the cul-de-sac at the end. Next slide, please. So this shows that in more detail. Again, the red is similar to what you've seen previously. The overall 101 acres, and the yellow shows the roadway as constructed or as proposed. Excuse me. Starting at a point on the right of the streams where Park Central Drive is, extending down John Boland Way to the end of the cul-de-sac. With the two connections in a I call it a plan north, I think it's actually easterly direction, John Boland Way, and then Flag Road.
Let me go. I want to see one more thing before. Okay.
Yeah, is your preference to get through the presentation?
I would defer to.
Let's get through the presentation.
Okay.
Then we're gonna have
Next slide, please. So again, as part of the plans that were submitted, we had again subdivision, we had grading and utilities. So we did try to follow the existing grading on site to the extent that we should and work with the topography. And from the stormwater system to support the roadway, there are 4 infiltration basins proposed. Those are all designed to meet or exceed state standards. With a very extensive stormwater management report that has been submitted as part of the package. Public water is proposed we have essentially bring the water line entirely down the road, and there's a couple of connections to Park Central Drive and also Blackthorn Drive. And sewer, as you heard, is going to be private. There's a private wastewater treatment plant goes on the site to handle this. Next slide. So this just shows those plans again, the detailed plans you'll be able to see much easier as part of the review, but that just shows the topography on the plan. See the areas approach the screen, these are the stormwater basins that I was referring to. 2, 3, 4 located here. And that is the wastewater treatment facility that was referenced earlier, just to put it in perspective for everybody. The next slide, please. That is the utility plan. There's no way you're going to see this on screen, but that just shows the utilities in the roadway. As I mentioned, water line is extended from Park Central Drive, heading up the roadway, and then connects back over to Blackthorn to form the loop. Next slide, please. So moving on, there's a separate set of plans that were submitted for the site plan portion of the application. You have heard all about this, so I won't belabor some of the details here, but there's four buildings. The buildings are accessed by one of 4 driveways, which I'll point out on the plan in a moment. You've heard about the parking. It's split parking, and it's approximately 50-50, but there's an under building podium for parking there, and there's also surface parking proposed. On site, we have walkways throughout the entire site connecting every building to the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision actually has a walkway on the eastern side, pretty much the entire length. And we've also proposed internal walkways throughout the site. It's more of a call it nature walk going to some of the undeveloped portions. Next slide, please. So this shows that in more detail, trying to keep everything consistent. Again, the red you've seen, that's the overall property. The yellow is the subdivision road. And now we've turned on the units. As you can see, that's located in the center of the screen on the plan north, actually east. That's how the buildings are situated on the site. They're out of 4. See, there's 4 access points from the proposed roadway system to service that site. There's also a couple on John Boland as well as Blackthorn Drive. There's 2 there as well. I did note earlier that there is gated access here. I'll point out. So the intent is that the residents will have an access card. So that isn't intended to be left open for free flow of traffic. That is a 2-way connection there. The walkway I mentioned earlier, you have a walkway that kind of meanders through the right here throughout the site. We thought that would be a nice feature to essentially utilize some of the unutilized land just as a walking trail that connects to the development. Next slide, please. So similar to the subdivision, we provide grading and utility plans, and we wanted to work with the property to do sites. This stormwater as well is directed to one of 4 basins on the property. Again, those are designed to fully meet or exceed the stormwater standards. Site today, again, there really aren't any features on site. It's kind of half infrastructure out there. So this will stabilize the site and meet stormwater standards by way of recharge back into the ground and treatment of the stormwater. Water is then connected to the water main that we are proposing as part of the subdivision roadway. And I referred earlier to the sewer that's connected to the on-site wastewater treatment. Next slide, please. These are just blow-ups that actually show the topography of the site. You can see the contours, how the roads work out. Point out a couple of the basins. The basin over here. back over that side. There. Next slide, please. Well, that's okay. It's just the, again, it just shows the utility plan, the intent of this, it shows all of the utilities that were connected into the infrastructure that we're putting within the subdivision roadway plan. Connecting back. Next, there's a landscape. So we had a landscape and amenity plan that's been proposed. Part of the proposal, along new roadways, we have street trees pretty much the entire way along the roadway. Within the actual site itself, we had a comprehensive landscape plan that was prepared. I think there's over 100 trees that are proposed on the site, and that excludes the street trees. There's much more along the street as well. Within the site plans, we have multiple amenity areas that are proposed, and they're scattered throughout the site, so they're not all focused at one building. But they consist of walking trails, bocce courts, dog walk areas, gazebo, fire pit, pickleball courts, and then just miscellaneous pocket parks. Just amenity for the residents. Slide, please. Overall, hard to read, but it shows the street trees along the entire length of the roadways. You can see some of those landscaping features within the development. The next two slides are actually blow-ups of the two buildings at a time. You can see that a little bit. Thank you. So, and the southerly two buildings, you can see that the landscaping proposed around the site. We wanted to pay particular attention to the rear of the site, so we have a lot of the landscaping focused in that area as well to provide a buffer to our neighbors. Next slide, please. Similarly, on the two northernmost buildings, similar theme with trees and things scattered throughout. Much focus was put on the rear property line. And then, which you can't see the detail, but obviously there's foundation shrubbery around the entire buildings. Show and nice. So with that, I would turn it over to Jason, or I turn it over to Kevin, who will come up next to discuss the traffic aspect. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the public. My name is Kevin Davey. I'm a professional engineer in Commonwealth and a certified professional traffic operations engineer. Also principal of TEC, an engineering firm located at two addresses in the Commonwealth, 282 Merrimack Street in Lawrence and 311 Main Street in Worcester. Next slide, please.
And where are you from?
I reside in Auburn, New Hampshire. In front of you is the study area. It shows much of the area that we did study, the different intersections. One is actually located just off the screen to the top of the view or to the north. But a number of intersections that focus not only within the state's infrastructure along Route 9, but other local roadways that are owned and controlled by the town of Southborough along Flag Road, Deerfoot Road, and the one that is off the top of the screen is the intersection of Main Street and Deerfoot. This is a comprehensive study area that looks at a number of different data points. We have a wealth of data that we've accumulated over the past decade. Accounts that we've commissioned, accounts that other firms have commissioned, other regional accounts that have either done by planning agencies or Mass DOT or others. The most recent data collection effort was completed in early to mid-June of this year, at a time when schools were in session. Next slide, please. And that's important just to understand more of the normalcy of when traffic occurs. As opposed to counting in the middle of summer where there could be some deviations of different trends. Overall, Flag Road, as it stands as of early June, has just over 1,200 vehicles per day that currently use it. In that morning peak hour, typically the commuter hours of 7:30 to 8:30, or in the afternoon of 4:30 to 5:30, you see anywhere from 97 to 125 or so vehicles per hour. That's for bi-directional traffic, so both directions along Flag Road in the vicinity of the site access points. For the crash history, Flag Road intersections have 2 or fewer crashes over an entire 5-year period. And all those intersections that are owned and controlled by the town are well below state and district averages that are compiled by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. As far as the speeds, it is regulated with a special speed regulation at 25 miles per hour. The town has introduced some of those driver feedback signs over the past many years. We still see average speeds and 85th percentile speeds that exceed the speed limit, suggesting an opportunity for other potential traffic calming devices along Flag Road. When we look at the context of the development, this is a 200-unit project, residential project. And when we develop the estimates for how much traffic will be generated, there is a well-known, respected source for the Institute of Transportation Engineers that has a wealth of data that looks at the data for how many trips or how many vehicle movements are created by developments of different sizes. This is technically, per the Institute of Transportation Engineers, a mid-rise housing development. We actually used a low-rise because it was a more conservative or higher number of trips. And when we look at the total traffic generation in and out of the project over the course of the day, we're conservatively looking at over 1,300 vehicle trips. And during those same commuter hours, we're looking at 20 entering trips, 64 exiting trips during the morning, which you probably envision for a residential project when most people may be departing to go to work on a typical weekday morning. That's flipped during the afternoon or early evening, at which point there's a slightly higher level of trips, but it's flipped to have more entering traffic at the time.
Is that data up to date with post-COVID?
It's actually conservative in relation to COVID because we have an actual table in the study to document what we've seen over the past decade or so with different traffic volumes where traffic volumes have dropped, particularly on Route 9, by as much as 20 to 24%, I believe it was. But as far as the post-pandemic new normal, as many call it, MassDOT's current guidelines suggest that anything as of March of 2022, that new data constitutes the new setting. Our industry and other agencies have looked at, resurgence of traffic. A lot of the trends are expected to be slower to get back to those levels. But we've documented what those are in comparison to understand the impacts. As far as the distribution of traffic, so we had already talked about how many trips are generated by the development. And just to back up for a quick second, the idea of the traffic generated in a peak hour doesn't mean that that's all that's generated. It's just that, as you can imagine, people leave in the morning at different times. So you may have a couple similar hours in the morning that are comparable, and a couple hours in the afternoon that are comparable. But we look at essentially the worst conditions for traffic in those traditional weekday peaks. But beyond what's generated or how many trips come in and out of the site, we look at the distribution of that traffic and where they go. And this is a particularly good site for the ability to distribute traffic to the regional highway system. It is a unique site in the fact that it sits in the corner of 495 and Route 9. And although some of the access points may lie on Flag Road, the development has been fashioned not just with our own thoughts about access points, but it's been heavily guided by prior conversations that we've had with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to help shape where those access points are, how traffic gets in and out as it relates to the access to Route 9 westbound. So this table shows you the approximations that we've included in our analysis. It's based on US Census data. We're looking at journey to work trips, which is the best tool for assessing those commute type patterns from a residential type development. There will be other trips and focused on some trips that will use Flag Road. And understandably for things like school related trips and others that may stay within the neighborhood and not access Route 9 or the highway system. When we look at what we could reasonably project to use Flag Road, within the neighborhood that isn't right at the new John Baldwin Road intersection, very close to Route 9, those trips that might go to and from the north, so towards the schools or towards town center tiers, would be on the order of what we show in the top row. Flag Road to and from the north, somewhere just shy of 20 vehicles over the course of an hour. The bulk of that would be heading Flag Road towards the south or using Park Central. Park Central will be the primary entrance from Route 9, from Route 9 westbound. It's going to be a direct shot into the project and into this 40B development. There will be a primary exit via the new John Baldwin Road that will serpentine its way down to an intersection about 150 feet off Flag Road from Route 9. We are also proposing a gated access point to Blackthorn, as the project team members mentioned, but also just to clarify that will be gated. It's not going to be a free flow. There'll be turnarounds on either end for those that don't have gate access. Overall, when you look at the general numbers for traffic, it equates to about one vehicle every 3 minutes on average that would use Flag Road to and from the north. But there are no capacity issues within the neighborhood. I think probably everybody in this room sees that is that there are thoughts and concerns about safety at certain locations, but capacity or typical level service is not an issue anywhere within these neighborhood intersections. We see level service A with a negligible level of delay at each of the intersections in the neighborhood that are town controls under the full growth condition. So in summary of the site access, Park Central would be the main access point into the project. While still maintaining the two-way traffic to the existing users that are on the lower end of the hill, so Cumberland Farms, the hotel and the existing office building. But just uphill from there, it would convert to one way for just entering traffic into this development. John Baldwin Road would be a one-way exit or egress down to Flag Road, and Blackthorn Drive extension would be a two-way local connection. And again, this is consistent with prior MassDOT guidance. We will be re-engaging them as this project advances. We wanted to first make a stop here with ZBA to start this process, but I'm extremely confident that we'll end up with the same access team, given the extensive guidance that MassDOT provided years ago. On travel demand management, trying to get people to not use the single occupancy vehicle whenever we can, or to try to have more of an environmentally friendly traffic scene. Looking at on-site bike racks, on-site laundry services, so you don't have to make a trip off-site to do your laundry. Making sure that we can right-size the parking supply One thing that I always like to see, because parking, supply, and traffic are very closely related at times, that this site has parking that is in excess or right around 2 spaces per unit, which is more than the industry averages would say that we need, so there's plenty of availability of parking. But it's post-transit schedule, so folks know the opportunities for either bus service to and from Worcester or the MBTA, so they're close to stop on the south side of town. Promoting carpooling and other features to try to limit some of that offsite traffic. There are certain improvements that we've recommended. They're very consistent with what we had looked at years ago. Flag Road and Blackthorn Road. For any of you that are coming out of the neighborhood there. Blackthorn, when you look to the right or to look south along Flag Road, is that historic freestanding rock wall that currently impedes sightlines for traffic exiting from Blackthorn. We've recommended that that be an always stop because of those sight distance items. It's consistent with what we had recommended many years ago. In turn, what that also does is provide an opportunity to calm traffic on Flag Road by having a stop condition at that intersection. Flag Road and Lovers Lane does marginally get sight lines from looking up and down Flag Road, but there's some minor brush clearing that could occur within the right of way, just to open them up for several more feet. Crystal Pond Road at Route 9, this is not a town location, it's under the state's jurisdiction. That intersection actually has a higher level of crash history that's been identified by the state. And we would be looking to work with them for some traffic signal timing updates. For those that might seek to make that U-turn movement on Route 9 from eastbound to westbound. Finally, conclusions. This is a superior site. When we look at the location within town, the service involved with this, the ease of having those future trips access the state highway network and distribute traffic versus having it in the middle of town and then distribute through a series of neighborhoods to get to that regional highway. Within our findings, our extensive data collection, I'm very confident that the project-related traffic can be safely and efficiently accommodated in this neighborhood.
So with that, we've concluded our initial presentation and I'd like to turn it back to the chair and board.
Okay.
Questions and comments. I do have one administrative question. Do you have a member absent tonight?
Oh,
Or
I apologize. I should have, that was an administrative thing I should have announced earlier. My apologies, to everybody. We do have 2 members who recused themselves from the hearing, Paul Pranos and Jamie Mead. Doug Mans has been appointed and I've asked him to sit on this hearing.
So you'll be conducting the hearing with 4 members?
That's correct.
Okay. Great, thank you for that clarification. Great. All yours.
All right, I'd like to, I know people have questions, I know the planning board probably has questions, but I would like to start with ZBA. So Mike, did you have a question you'd like to start with?
I don't have questions with respect to the proposed plan. I have lots of other questions as far as what's been presented in front of us. I don't have questions.
Okay. Doris, is there anything you'd like to ask at this time?
Your general question.
Sure.
I'm reading through the schedule appendix A. So this that permit will move forward. This could be a rental or a condo or both. Not getting that correctly.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Sure. It's proposed as an ownership development. So these are proposed through, as I indicated, the Mass Housing Ownership Program. We intend that this will be a for sale ownership program. What does that mean for the town? It means that 50 of the units will be countable towards the town's subsidized housing. But there will be that private ownership, there will be that turnover once the development is built out.
Yeah, okay, so I understand that, so, but in end, what it says is, it will basically, as I go to a total general permit waiver, that it could be either,
It can't go to rental without an amendment of the project eligibility letter, so the project eligibility letter proposed, well, through that process, proposed as an ownership project, so that's what we are proposing to the town. It cannot automatically by fiat.
Legally has to say that, but.
For now, yeah, unless we decide with the town, or ultimately decide that it makes sense through market conditions at the time. That it makes sense to go to rental, but there's a process for that. Right now, this is an ownership project, and we intend it to remain an ownership project. It's a lot of material, I
you
understand.
know, it is and it isn't, I have another question, I don't know if you may want to address it.
Go ahead.
Probably done with my questions. Okay, so this is gonna be an engineering, I think, site plan, when the units go in, I didn't get a sense of the elevation. So if we're putting in the several buildings, and they're going up 4 stories with a half parking lot. Are they gonna oversee the abutting neighborhoods on Van Tree? Or are they gonna, like, how's that gonna work on the grade?
The, so they're all set at different elevations, but the tops of the buildings would be above the grade of the abutting property.
Above the grade.
Correct, that's.
So I had a single family home, am I 2 stories above the grade in general? Or 3 stories above the grade, so they're hovering over the neighborhood?
Don't know that, I
Sideline.
can try to
Okay,
get you that answer.
that'd be great. And then that's the time, it seems like,
Yeah.
Just
move along.
I know that planning of the specific question is.
Right, okay, so I mean, yeah, to allow public to speak, so I certainly could keep that.
No,
in.
I'm very glad to hear.
So, I probably have a bunch of procedural questions, but to be honest, I want to post on those for a little bit. I also have a follow-up questions, what you just brought up. Some site cross sections might be really helpful, but in fairness, I would rather hear the residents speak and the town residents first. Well, I do have one, and this was in the planning board letter too. My understanding, there's a lawsuit right now pending, with 15 Bantry Road. I think you guys have settled, done a settlement agreement or an agreement with them. So I'd be just curious as to what the status of that is, and also Chair, back to you. I don't know if we've had town council advise on this letter that's been received too as well, so I throw that out there too.
Yeah.
We may have, I just don't know.
Okay, you wanna?
Yeah.
Address that?
I'll put you on the spot, sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Jay Tallerman, Town Council. So I'm aware of the letter. I was aware of the former agreement and covenant that the current litigation is regards. I'm not fully aware of the ins and outs of that litigation. I have not reviewed any of the pleadings. I think there are a range of possibilities with respect to what this covenant may or may not mean for this project. I think by and large, we probably want to see the status and litigation and perhaps have it run its course a little bit. What I would ask through the chair is to ask counsel for the applicant, whether it's Mr. Panos or their litigation counsel, as well as counsel for the various opposing litigants. And there's 2 different attorneys for that, one of whom is here and the other one may be on Zoom, to provide memoranda rather than just letters and allegations in between this session and the next session, so that I could have their kind of best shot as to why this matters or may matter to this project. it could end up being a range of possibilities for this board. It could have a preclusive effect on some part of the project, all of it. It more likely has a potential effect where we would require that they resolve this issue so that this project could go forward by way of a condition if there were to be an approval on this. But it's too early for me to tell. So I'm gonna rely on, what I would suggest is that we ask them rather than having a bunch of lawyers talk at your meeting here
Agreed.
tonight about something we don't know enough
Right.
about. In between sessions, having them outline where they are, where they expect it to go, whatever advocacy they want to provide an argument in that, I think would be welcome. They're all good attorneys on all sides of that, so, and then I would review it along with my real estate and litigation department.
How much time do you think you need for that?
I
review?
mean, they're immersed in their arguments now. I can't imagine that it would take them very long to get something back to me. If it would take longer, we could do it between the second and third. I mean, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
For now.
If I could, it just. Reading the declaration and agreement of restrictive covenants. Reading its plain face, reading what the parties entered into. By moving the application forward. You know, so the parties can make their appeals, if they choose to, with respect to the court, they can choose to appeal this. But presuming on its face that this was a valid agreement, that it's enforceable, that it's bound to the parties. And now the project is moving forward in stark contradiction to the agreements. Are we not basically allowing the petitioner to move the ball forward in stark contrast to their own agreements?
So there's a couple elements to that I think we still need to explore. Having looked at it a little bit, it appears that both sides have arguments as to one side having an argument that that agreement applies and this project shouldn't be here. And the other one says, well,
But shouldn't that be resolved prior to this
Well-
moving forward?
maybe not. So here's the elements, and as someone who represents a lot of towns under I can tell you that we'd like the Housing Appeals Committee and the courts to pay more attention to what we call the issue of site control, which is a jurisdictional prerequisite before you can even apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We would like them to resolve these questions in every instance. What the courts have said and the Housing Appeals Committee has said is, yes, it is a jurisdictional prerequisite. But all they have to show to get a key to come to the Zoning Board of Appeals is to show some color of title. Pretty vague term by lawyers, but it is more of a minimal kind of prima facie showing than
I understand
what the court would resolve. However, looking at that covenant and reading it the way you've done, and I read it several months ago, and I'm not entirely convinced yet that it is either preclusive or not a barrier at all. The language of it, I sense I know what the arguments of the other sides. I just want to give them an opportunity. And if in fact the courts are going to resolve it, maybe there's a reason to have a pause here, or maybe there's a reason
That,
to have.
as we're an hour and 20 minutes into this already, it just
Right.
seems
But
premature.
to get into the door to see the ZBA,
We just need.
they
color,
need to show some color of type.
Which they have.
To get out of the door from the ZBA, we may require that they show more.
It seems
No.
like it's a one-way street.
Right, this is a difficult area for towns, and I have made a lot of arguments over the years on why the issue of site control should be taken a little more seriously by the subsidizing agencies. That said, the cases say what they say, and I don't want to have this board take an action that will then remove the possibility of perhaps negotiating a project that works for the town. There are a lot of questions here, but I think a good place to start before we get too deep into it is to have each of them give me their best shot. And so that I understand where their arguments are.
Yeah. If the abutters are in violation of the agreement, get a declaratory judgment and the agreement's null. And then we know what we're dealing with, but it seems the cart's before the horse.
I mean, that litigation is underway. I don't know fully the status. I would hope that they would do more than just write letters of some or citation. Their respective positions should hold.
I asked the council, what is a reasonable amount of time for you to prepare what Jay is asking for in this case?
I understand what he's asking for, and I need to understand what the board intends to accomplish. In briefing, as we attorneys call it, the issue, because if I may, Chair, just finish. This matter is pending litigation. By briefing the issue to the board to accomplish what? We're not wearing black robes here. The matter is.
Administratively, we are.
Right.
No, you're not. With all due respect, this matter is being litigated.
Sure.
There are people in Boston at the land court who will decide this issue.
Sure.
It is not the jurisdiction of this board to decide this.
I agree.
To press the pause button. We have met the jurisdictional requirements required of us. That jurisdictional requirement is presumed. And by the way, Mass Housing looked at this very carefully. There was correspondence that went to them through Attorney Health, Mass Housing.
Okay.
Who issued the project eligibility letter. Again, their jurisdictional charge under project eligibility is three things. It's to determine whether you're the applicant is a limited dividend organization. To determine whether it's fundable under an applicable subsidy program. In this case, we're under the New England Fund. And whether you have site control. That's their charge.
So is it my understanding you're not going to be providing information?
I need to understand why you need it, because what are you going to use it to decide for? The court is deciding this issue. It is not.
So should we not hold?
Yeah, let me respond here.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I was afraid.
Yeah,
And I didn't want to have this be a back and forth with lawyers. But here's where I part ways on this. And this is not what the court's deciding. The court is not deciding whether or not someone has the jurisdiction to apply for a comprehensive permit. The court is deciding what the respective parties' rights are vis-a-vis the proposal here in terms of the impact of this covenant. This board does have the right to consider whether legally or practically this covenant has an impact on this project. And it may be more practical than legal. I will point out something else. And you don't have to hop. So you can, I will point out something else. They are proposing a subdivision. This applicant is proposing a subdivision. I have a lot of questions, which we'll get to later.
Sure.
About the proposal of the subdivision. But they are proposing a subdivision. Under the cases regarding subdivisions, and they are legion, a board, normally the planning board, but here the zoning board, because you're sitting in the shoes of the planning board, not only has the right, but the obligation to ensure that access to and from a project is legitimate from a title perspective.
Exactly.
That is a vital issue here, and I'm not suggesting that I won't conclude at the end of the day that we should let the land court action run its course because they both have good arguments and do our job. What I am suggesting is that I am not going to accept an argument that you can't review this.
Perfect.
Not at all. And I would respectfully suggest that Mr. Pano or their litigation counsel and Mr. Timon, who's nice enough to come here today, who represents some of the abutters and who I know well, and the other attorneys who are representing an abutter who I also know well, and easily, without giving away the store, frame their arguments for you as to why this covenant matters or doesn't matter in the context
Of title.
of what we're doing here today. That's not a big ask.
Nope.
That's pretty easy ask. They're already knee deep in litigation. They've already framed their position for the land court. They can do it here for you and they owe you that.
Perfect. We're on the same page.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you should go.
I'm good.
The other attorney representing
Okay,
the butters has his hand up on Zoom, so I
okay.
just wanted to. let
Let's
you know.
briefly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very briefly. All caps.
Yeah.
So my name is Ben Timon. I am from the firm Timon Davis and Duffy in Boston, and I represent the Whitneys on Blackthorn, Boydens, Grays, and Woos on Tara Road. I represent those 4 families, each of whom were signatories to the 2015. And I will be brief because I agree with what Attorney Tallerman said regarding the relevance of that agreement to proceedings. I'm also counsel in the land court action where the applicant has brought an action seeking the land court to render null and void that agreement, but the agreement's in effect. Until the land court says differently. And I agree with Attorney Tallerman that it's relevant. And at risk of laboring the point slightly, the project eligibility letter also says very clearly that it's relevant. And specifically, contrary to, I think what Attorney Panos was suggesting, specifically in the 3rd page, says that the applicant should be prepared to address the applicability in terms of that agreement, the declaration of existing covenants. So it's clearly relevant to this process. And I certainly have no issue with providing Attorney Tallerman legal briefing he suggested prior to the next meeting.
And just roughly how much time do you think you would need to prepare such a memorandum?
Has the next session date not been set?
No.
Okay, right. 2 to 3 weeks, I think, would be
Okay,
sufficient for me.
okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Can we go to Zoom then?
So I have Attorney Hill.
Good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. For the record, my name is Dan Hill. I'm the attorney for the DeMichaelis family on Bantry Road. And I was actually the lawyer that drafted the covenant back in 2015. I was representing the neighborhood back then. And first of all, I do agree with Attorney Tallerman's suggestion. I have no problem providing something a little bit more substantial in terms of our briefing, although I did give you all a 4-page letter that basically outlines the argument. I can beef that up if that's requested. And just to provide a little bit more context on what happened in 2015, since I don't think any member of the board today was on the board back then. This settlement agreement that occurred in 2015 was actually pushed on us by the zoning board back then. And this was a negotiation that was brokered by the zoning board's consultant. So it's not just, the board is not just a bystander here. The board was a participant in this process. Our settlement agreement was incorporated in the comprehensive permit. Compliance with the agreement was a condition on that permit. So this application is, there's no question, this application is in violation of the agreement. It proposes a project that is totally inconsistent with the concept plan that was approved and agreed to by this same developer in 2015. This developer agreed in 2015 to wait
Sorry.
2 years.
Just remember, we're not litigating it.
Yeah,
here.
we're not making this.
Try to keep it brief.
Yep.
Please.
Sure, I just want to provide that context. So I guess, I can provide an additional brief to Attorney Tallerman in the next 2 weeks. But it's our position tonight that this application is illegal and that this hearing itself is illegal. And we'll make that point more strongly in our subsequent brief.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want-
Just very briefly.
We've heard from them for an hour and a half.
Yeah, all right. All right.
Very briefly,
Very briefly.
very briefly, please.
So we're not litigating this matter here tonight. I disagree, however, with the characterization that this is not about the applicability of this project, of that agreement, that covenant, that's 8 years old, that was never acted upon for an entirely
We're
different
not litigating this.
development.
I'm not litigating.
Either
Either wrap it up or we're moving on.
I'm just suggesting that this matter, and I'll repeat myself, is in front of a court of competent jurisdiction.
Understood.
And it is up to that court to determine its applicability here. The court knows about
You
this,
got it.
Okay. All right.
This-
We got it.
application.
Okay.
The court actually required an amendment of the complaint to include reference to this
So,
application.
sorry, but
So-
this is starting to be litigating, and
Yeah.
I think we're
We
we're
got it.
basically gonna go, I would like to still make the request that Mr. Talman is suggesting that we do, which is the memorandum from your side as well as.
But if I can make
Tyler
clear-
and Mr.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Hill.
But just to guide me, if
Yeah.
I can make clear what is the conclusion you're seeking? What would you like us, if I can ask through the chair to Attorney Talman? Exactly
Are
what,
you just trying to find out exactly what it is you're being
Yeah.
asked to deliver?
exactly.
All right, so that's fine.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that you need to describe for us why that covenant is not applicable or does not hinder the viability of this project. Not gonna give you any more direction than that. Mr. Hill has described in his letter why he thinks that the covenant or the agreement is preclusive to this project. I don't care whether we're talking procedural or jurisdictional or otherwise, but it's up to you to review this. You are obviously making an argument already in court that it's not applicable. That might be a good place to start.
Great, thank you. Okay, why don't we go to any members of the public that would like to ask questions or comments? If you do, can you please come up to the lectern? Yeah. Please, yeah. Got it. Please remember to state your name and address first.
Absolutely. So name is June Chishut and address is 9 Tower Road. I am a butter to this project. So for a good hour and a half, we heard somebody, and my questions were pretty big, but we heard somebody from Peabody, Northborough, Franklin, Auburn, New Hampshire, talk about our town, okay? For an hour and a half. People who want to talk on behalf of our town are ushered off really quickly. My story is a simple one, right? 10 years ago, my wife and I bought a house in Southborough because we like the community. We trust the zoning board. We trust the people who are running the town to make the right decision. 2015, we signed a contract. We signed that contract because the zoning board, the town that we trusted, said it was the right thing to do at the time. Now we're here, 2023. We're talking about something that we agreed on back then. I shouldn't be here. I work for a living, okay? This is simple. You guys can keep revisiting this issue, but listen, sometimes there are bad investments, okay? It's that simple.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Jack. You want-
Doug Bagnini, 4 Wyeth Circle. I own the property between 66 and 72 Flag Road. And I'm concerned about the runoff and drainage that comes down John Boland. I guess it's John Boland Road that connects from Flag Road. There is a action pond there with a discharge that goes onto my property. So I just want to make sure that I'm protected from drainage that comes up. I think there's about 1,350 feet of roadway that gathers drainage down.
I would anticipate, we have peer review.
I would hope so.
Yeah. But thank you for
I
that.
feel like I got lost in the shuffle last night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yes, sir.
Members of the board, town council, Mr. Panos. My name is Grant Whitney, and for the last 22 years, I've lived at 23 Blackthorn Drive with my wife Elizabeth and my 2 sons. And yes, just like Jude and Wendy and Dante and Brian and his wife Melissa, as well as the Boydens, I'm a signatory. We are signatories to this. We gave up things in 2015. We gave them up, as Jude mentioned, because the town, this board, with its consultant, suggested that that's the way we should operate. We did so. We entered into an agreement. We signed that agreement. It was recorded, Mr. Panos. And according to Mimi Luttrell, who is on this call right now on the planning board, as recently as yesterday, it is still binding. It is still in the registry of deeds. That is valid. That is enforceable. I believe we have an agreement. I believe by the clear terms of that agreement, we, all of us, the neighbors, honored that agreement. We did not challenge. We did everything by the book. All that we want, the benefit of our bargain. We want the benefit of our compromise. And yes, I have a hard time saying that it is not disconnected from this when I see every representation to Blackthorn Drive extension by my house replicated as if nothing came before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy DeMichaelis, 15 Bantry Road. Thank you, Grant, you said that very eloquently. We went into that agreement and it was hard. It was a hard negotiation and it was hard for all of us with what we could give up. And we thought we were doing the right thing and that we were going to have some sort of a win come out of this project that was presented to us. And to be here now and feeling like we negotiated in bad faith. That what motivation would anyone else have in this town to go to the table, negotiate, try and make it work, try and get a win-win out of it with a developer if our case isn't valid? Nobody else would ever want to go to the table again. Thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we go to
You want the manager?
yes, please.
Versus Jamie. Jamie.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, come.
Okay. Hi, it's Jamie Meath, 11 Lovers Lane. I am a member of the ZBA, but have recused myself for these Park Central hearings and decisions. But I just want to echo what the abutters are saying, that to me, it's shocking that we're having this meeting when we know that there's legislation going on and we don't know what the outcome of that that the hearings are going on about what's going to happen about the covenant, and it will have a direct impact on these hearings. And this is putting the cart before the horse, if you ask me. Regardless of what happens with that decision, I would encourage the ZBA, who I know well and respect well, and know that abutters and citizens of Southborough, their opinions are of the highest priority, that the covenants that were discussed should at the very least be the minimum of what's taken into consideration if this is approved at some point. So the fact that we're here, the petitioner is asking for things that were not agreed upon by the abutters. We don't know what's going to happen with that from the courts, but regardless, I'm asking the ZBA to hold them to those standards and perhaps even more. I also was concerned about seeing the preliminary heights in the drawings that we saw. Obviously, I would encourage the ZBA not to approve anything unless you have actual heights for any of the proposed buildings. I have an issue with the traffic patterns and the way they describe them. I do think it will have a major impact on the roads. As someone who drives those roads every day, sees students walking and biking and people biking and people walking, an impact of a 200 unit building is going to have a great impact on those roads. And I do worry about the safety of our citizens. So I know there will be a lot more hearings, but that is where I'm at for now. And I appreciate the ZBA taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Go to the next. Sorry.
We have Mimi from the planning board.
Okay. Mimi.
Good evening, thank you. The planning board did send a letter, and I would request an answer to the issues that we raised in the letter. And one of the issues was this agreement, and I think this is the first thing we need to figure out before we move on. A couple other things, Mass Housing hosted a site walk, but they didn't actually allow anyone on the site. So I would request that a site walk be scheduled, and also that balloons showing the heights of the buildings be placed on the site to have some idea of what those 4-story with over podium parking will look like next to the abutting residential homes. And one question that was not in the letter, who will have the gate access to Blackthorn? Thank you.
And the record systems.
So easier for you to get out.
That was actually a question I had as well. Who actually gets access to that?
Would you like me to approach the podium?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just not sure what these microphones pick up.
I think if you speak clearly from there, it's probably fine, but yeah, since you're here, go ahead.
So with regard to the gate access, it's for residents and emergency services.
President vote.
Yes, and it would be for service providers at the property itself. But primarily residents and emergency services. I believe there was discussion about providing school bus access there as well.
Okay.
But the primary access holders will be residents. Thank you.
Brian Gray, 17 Terra Road. I'm an abutter and also was part of the 2015 agreement with the developer. And part of the reason why I was originally opposed to the project, and primarily the reason, is the safety of Flag Road in particular. Originally, all of the traffic was going on Flag Road. This still shows a substantial amount of traffic going on Flag Road. In the traffic study that I remember from 2015, there was no mention of pedestrians on Flag Road or bicyclists. I don't know that anyone sitting over there had been on Flag Road, but I like that the proposal to reduce traffic includes an on-site bike rack, which is a great idea. So I'm assuming that the traffic study that you performed also has safety impacts of bicycling on Flag Road, because you proposed giving those people bicycles. So I would love to see that the ability of saying people can safely bike on Flag Road. I think if you go today and walk or bike on Flag Road, you would see frankly, just how stupid of an idea that is. The bike on Flag Road, where the 85th percentile is 33 to 36 miles per hour, based on your data. So 1 out of 6 cars going 36 plus miles an hour, with my kids biking, walking to school every morning. That's not a place where I feel safe adding more volume of vehicles to the road. And I don't need an answer. I'm sure since you brought up the on-site bike rack that it's in your traffic study. So thank you.
Thank you.
Howard Rose, 2 Gantry Road. There's 1,000 questions we can get into on the traffic studies. There's a couple of questions. One, are these new traffic studies? Any of these studies are just all regurgitated for past jobs?
Brand new published study with new data.
Traffic studies and there, you still have your, you have to put Lover's Main on your report.
You should read a report.
Well, it's not, it wasn't on your chart. It wasn't shown at all. So again, that's not why I'm not here. We're getting this all about as we dig into this subject. I was gonna talk about the legality of it shouldn't even be here. That's been well covered. Thank you. I just want to remind you this board of something. Just because it's on that drawing doesn't mean you have to say okay. You have the ability to do access on Blackthorn. You do not have to say no problem, gated is great. You can say it's emergency only as it was. You can say, we don't want this, we don't want the building so hot. You can put conditions, you are not obligated to just give them whatever. Please remember this board is here for the town, the safety of the town, as well as the new residents potentially that may come, but the safety of everyone, especially the existing residents. Thank you.
My name is David Perry, 22 Main Street. I'm not in the button. I just have a question. Why is the road gated? Could you explain the purpose of gating it? What that accomplishes?
You can answer from there. Mr. Chair, the idea that it's not just going to be a through connection for general traffic, that it's limited to just those entities that Attorney Panos described, but just so that it has a limited potential for new traffic for that focused audience of the new developments within the developments, emergency services, understandably have to be there, or potential for bus access to the service project.
Is there any party with the safety department or fire department on that, or that's?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we expect that to be part of the process.
But I guess I was asking, have you done it already, or that's something we can just anticipate doing going forward?
I don't believe
We,
so.
but other than the site visit with Mass Housing, we have not engaged the town. We're
Right.
waiting for the peer review process to play out, and typically emergency services are a very integral part of that peer review process, so.
Right, well, okay, I mean, that's maybe it's naive.
Oh, no, we're
As
not
we
naive
said,
at all.
There's not one person here who was on the board the last time that this was up in front of us, so.
Because I also want to make it clear, there were significant comments through the project eligibility process from
Yes.
the town.
Correct.
And we had the benefit of reviewing those comments and adjusting and tweaking some of the plans accordingly, so.
Okay.
And some of them were of a public services, emergency apparatus nature. And we expect those conversations will continue, and we're all ears.
Okay. Great.
Jonathan Green, 10 Tower Road. Few things, I mean, we could get into the safety, the traffic and the building sizes and everything else. I'm sure we'll get there once we determine if this is actually a full project. A few things I didn't hear addressed is water. Where's the water coming from? There's very poor water pressure associated with the neighborhoods today. We actually have pumps in place in order to get the required PSI within the neighborhood. So there's been no talk about water access. So I think that's gonna be a problem. As part of that site walk, I think there should also be an environmental and a wildlife study done on the property. There's quite a bit of wildlife in the neighborhood. You see turkeys, coyotes, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff living in that forest, right? It's a forest. It's been there for a really long time. It is not a wasteland of brush. It's not what it is. That pond on there. And there's quite a bit of wildlife that is the other thing is we do also need to audit that traffic study. I actually have video from mid-June of the Madison Place light being held for long periods of time. I don't know where the study comes from, but that light is going to impact anybody coming off of Flag Road on Route 9. I have video of traffic from that light during this period, all the way back to where you get off the dump, right? So you'd be heading westbound, but coming that way. And traffic west coming eastbound, all the way on to 495, all the way beyond it, almost to where BJ's used to be. So they were messing with the light. There was something going on with that light during that traffic study.
This is the light you were talking about. The one
At Madison Place. So what the light in Madison Place controls the volume of traffic that goes up and down Route 9. When you hold that light, right, makes it a lot easier to get it out of Flag Road if it's done for a long period of time. But that's not the case. So that happened mid-June. All of a sudden, that light is not held that long. I'll tell you that right now. And it's flowing, and you can't get in and out of Flag Road. My son's learning how to drive. Try teaching a 16-year-old how to get out of Flag Road to Route 9. It's near impossible. It is extremely dangerous. The U-turn at Madison Place, extremely dangerous. Nobody has talked about that, right? Never mind Flag Road going the other way. Now you put the buildings and the access closer to Blackthorn. Everybody's going through Blackthorn in this proposed plan. And everybody that's going to Blackthorn, I'll tell you right now, they're going left on Flag Road. They are all going, schools are there, the stores are there, everything is there. There's no reason for us to believe that everybody is just gonna come out of this road, go down to the flag one, take a right and be gone. That's not the case. We all know, we live here, we understand it. Thank you.
Do we have anything else in Zoom or no?
I don't know if my right now.
Oh, yeah, anybody who's on Zoom, you do have the ability. I don't think I said, I did say you have the right to speak like anybody else does. There's a feature on there where you can raise your hand and Laura will see you and you'll have the opportunity to speak. Is there anybody else in the hearing who would like to say something new?
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question? I was taking some notes. Sorry. Okay. All right, I was wondering if you could bring the PowerPoint back up. You guys keep talking about it subdivided and there's yellow lines and red lines. I was just wondering if somebody could actually explain what that means. That this is a subdivided plan and what part is subdivided and what part isn't. If you guys could explain that, that would be great. With that, one of the images from PowerPoint.
Go right ahead.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
And just to give some more background. Everyone, including hopefully folks on Zoom, can see the application packets that were delivered to the board. The material presented tonight is a 30,000 foot overview. The traffic report, for example, was how many pages, Kevin? Hundreds, with appendices. We fully expect every corner of every page to be scrutinized and peer-reviewed. This is going to be the beginning of a fairly extensive and long and expensive process. So be patient. We will do the best we can to answer your questions. To the extent we can't, we have professionals who will work with the folks that the board is gonna hire to review every iota of that application on its behalf. And there will be a lot of discussion going on. This is, again, very preliminary today. So with regard to the question on subdivision control. You have that one here?
Yeah.
Is that the subdivision plan you want?
I think, is that,
Yeah.
sorry, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That particular slide?
There's yellow lines and red and like.
Yeah,
there's
maybe
something
I can
already
just go
part of
back
this
over that,
project.
So the red is the entire parcel. It's 101 acres, give or take. Right? So, and John is the engineer who put it together, so, you know, he should speak to the substance of it, but basically, the subdivision is of this 101 acre parcel, including the roadway, which is what triggers typically a subdivision. So this large 101 acre lot is being subdivided into smaller lots. The development parcel, the walking trail parcel, parcels where the wastewater treatment is going to go. So John, I don't wanna misspeak.
Yeah, again, at a very high level, but essentially, we're extending, you know, Park Central Drive ends here. We're essentially extending it, as you see in yellow, to here. As part of that, once you go the road is own property, essentially. Has the right of way associated with it. The development parcel that we're talking about is essentially right in there.
But the road is part of the development parcel.
So that's
to be
correct.
clear.
Yeah, but we're carving it up into different lots. So the development parcel is essentially, you know, the lots that are right there in the road.
So that's
Yeah, that was exactly. So that was.
Can I ask a question related to this? What's the plan for the remaining portion of the property?
We have not. If the non.
Is your
If I can through the chair, the non 40B, the non-development parcels would be subject to the regular zoning, like any other parcels.
And report to the state as to what you do with the remaining piece if you're gonna use 40B to get the road in?
It's not subject, whatever we're doing offsite. Even if we proposed a comprehensive plan that was mixed use in nature because the uses allowed are industrial in nature. Those non 40B, non-residential affordable housing uses would be subject to your regular zoning. We just haven't contemplated that next phase. If we don't know, we don't have a plan. And
So what is the outline of where the walking trails?
So we propose some off-site walking, we have walking trails within the site, the off-site walking trail, we put a meandering trail through here. It's on the opposite side.
is that sufficient? And if I could answer the question about a site walk. That was posed by the planning board.
Yeah.
We're happy to do this. I haven't even been to the site because it's a difficult site. It's overgrown, it's highly vegetated. I'm not sure how we accomplish this. This is why we didn't do it with mass housing. We stood on the periphery of the site, but there aren't roads, there's no network of walking paths or trails to get through there. It's tick ridden, it's, you know, you name it, so.
That it is a planning board request, so let's just follow up on that.
Sure, and figure out if we can accomplish it.
Correct, right.
No issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanna raise some questions, it's more procedural, because I don't wanna get into things that are gonna be the subject of peer review. On the question regarding, two questions kind of raised. I am unclear on whether the proposed waivers from subdivision control, of which there are many. There is some support for the notion that you can carve up a lot through a subdivision at the ZBA rather than the planning board under 40B. But the roadway, they talk about it in terms of being part of the development locus, but that's not what the subdivision plan shows. It shows it as a roadway with several lots, including the development locus. That's probably fine, although I think the applicant is gonna have to demonstrate that. I don't think, given the fact that this roadway is going to serve other lots and be the roadway for those other lots, that the waivers that they're requesting would be the kind of waivers that you would grant under 40B, for which there's more deference applied to the applicant. Strikes me that the waivers they're requesting, unless I hear a persuasive argument to the contrary, are the kind of waivers that the planning board may consider when granting a conventional subdivision approval. And for that, you have a very involved, very attentive planning board. And I'm sure they would give their recommendation on whether those waivers should be granted or not.
Okay.
So I'm open-minded on it, but as I see it now, there are a number of subdivision waivers here. And I'm not sure they belong in a 40B waiver list. I have significant concerns about that. It might be at the end of the day that the planning board could support these kind of waivers, including the length of a single access roadway in their normal course, but my guess is that they'll have an appropriately critical eye on this particular issue. Similarly, with respect to the subdivision, I note that there's certain infrastructure on other lots here, including stormwater management. And I know that there's a stormwater management bylaw in the town that has specific requirements. I don't know if they're complying with all of those requirements or if they're going to be seeking waivers from any of those requirements. If they're seeking waivers for stormwater management systems that are not on the 40B locus, that's an issue as well. So procedurally, these are issues that have to get addressed. Additionally, with respect to the subdivision, they are showing all these other lots. Imagine there are some future plans for them. I'm not sure the board is entitled to know exactly what those are, but I do think the traffic analysts, the stormwater people, other professionals will want to have some sense of what a potential future build could be there. If there were one or two more projects of this size potentially on some of those other parcels, then we have a very different traffic picture. I don't know what those other lots could support vis-a-vis wetlands or otherwise, but I think it's important that there at least be some effort by the applicants to state generally what the upper extent of a reasonable expectation would be, because I think future build analysis for traffic at the very least, which is going to be a significant issue here, is important. One other procedural thing that I'll mention while I'm up here, not particularly germane to much that has been discussed tonight, is that I saw on the waiver list a generic waiver for essentially the entirety of the wetland bylaw in town.
And conservation does have.
And it's gonna have to be a lot more detailed than that, chapter and verse, which particular wetland bylaw and regulations they want to have waived. So those are some of the kind of the procedural things that I've been kind of flagging a little bit that I think the applicant can help us with and to help us understand and to help us develop the scope for our peer review as well.
Can I ask you a question?
It's up to Mr. Williams.
Can I ask Mr. Talman?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Talman, is there anything that we're concerned about from a sound perspective as well as a light perspective because of 495, right? This property abuts 495, you start to clear cut a forest like that, and now you've got a sound issue and you've got a light issue from the state highway.
So a couple, two sides of that, and I think by the end of this, people will just be calling me Jay. I think, my kids' friends call me Mr. Talon, so at some point, we'll be on a first name basis. But so there's some yeses and nos to your question. So from a common sense kind of approach, if this was a special permit, traditional zoning permit, we would be able to consider impacts from sound, because it's just common sense, and that happens under 40B. In terms of compliance with things that might be regulated by the state, the more recent cases under 40B suggest that compliance with state mandates with respect to sound and sound thresholds, they have to comply with anyway, so it's not always a function of a local permitting board. That said, excessive noise has an impact to the neighborhood. So I think it can be a valid issue, and it is typically an issue where there is some amount of sound study being done in chapter 40.
All right, so I'm just gonna remind you, we're after 9, Mr. Whitney asked.
A quick question back to the yellows and reds. It looked like the red went all the way to Route 9. Is that assuming the egress, or how is that one way or two way from Route 9 into the proposed on Park Central Drive?
Park Central Drive?
Yeah.
It's one way in.
Making it one way in.
One way in.
And then
Correct.
The road, the John Bowen.
Onto John Bowen. Okay.
But that red is, as I indicated, marks out the entire.
Just being clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Rose.
Mine's a procedural. You guys have a very nice book there of everything. Is that on a website somewhere yet, and we can get to it?
Yeah.
Okay, new website to a challenge. Somewhere on our town website.
Yeah. If you go to the, can I, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. If you go to the town website, go to the zoning board of appeals page, there's a link on the left and on the main page that says 2023 Park Central Comprehensive Permit Application. All the materials are there, the full application, letters from the boards, everything. And I'm gonna keep that updated, so as we get more information, more documents, those will go up there too.
Is the notification system on the website back? So we used
The
to,
news flashes?
well, the news flashes, there used to be, you could get emails and notifications when there's a meeting. I don't think a lot of people knew about this meeting because the notifications have all been wiped out. There used to be notifications when new documents were posted, all that you get email ones.
Okay.
Since the new website, and I can ask Jay about this with
Yeah, I know, I set up news flashes for ZBA. So if you sign up for those, you should get those. And I think there's a way that you can get alerts for agendas as well.
because again, when I did the website, I could apparently all the other ones were wiped out. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, Doris. Doris,
I've got the tiniest question.
Tiny question.
It's a tiny one. So, just someone from it who's the right person. So in July of this last year, we formed a new LLC, Residents of Park Central. Is that correct? And the other
That's
LLC,
correct.
and the other LLC went away. That ran the
What's
project.
the other LLC?
One called Park Central LLC.
Park Central.
It's not this
became-
Park.
No, so let me explain the chain. I thought I said a lot, so.
Sure.
Park Central became Park Central Investment LLC, who is the property owner.
Mhm.
The Residences of Park Central LLC is the applicant. That's the limited dividend company that got approved through the project eligibility
Okay, so
process.
who owns the property? Just very basic.
The Residences, I'm sorry, Park Central Investment LLC is the property.
And who manages and manages? the
William
project?
Petrie.
No, I got that on the organization, but so the Residences of Park Central is the management arm.
No, it's a totally separate entity. It's controlled by overlapping management and
Right.
There's overlapping management and control, but they're totally separate entities.
Right. Okay, so who owns the property?
Park Central Investment LLC.
Okay, so who owned the property 5 years ago?
It would have been the predecessor. Park Central was the same entity. They just changed the name
Okay.
to Park Central Investment.
I can just look on the secretary.
Yeah, oh, well, you could look online with the registry, but I gave you the deeds, I believe. In the,
Yeah, you gave me the deeds,
in the
but I'll
application.
just check the Secretary of State site on.
Sure.
That was it, other than I had, all my questions are gonna be in appendix and the next document. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think what the right thing is just to try to schedule the next hearing. I don't know if that is, we need time for peer review. Or I'm sure we'd love to know a little bit more about. The covenant, but that I understand well, is that's in litigation, so.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things. One, also Laura, reminded me, we are missing from the application package a copy of the pro forma that you submitted to Mass Housing.
We're not providing,
You are providing it.
we are not providing,
You're required under the local rules to provide it. It's a public record. Please provide it.
but we're not required to provide it.
You
Under
are.
the
because
CMR, which is very clear. Look, I don't want, let's have this conversation offline, but
We're not
providing.
asking for a pro forma. You're wrong.
I'm
not
not on.
We're not asking for a pro forma that relates to conditions that may be imposed. We are asking for a copy of something that you've already given to Mass Housing. It already exists.
So do a FOIA request if you think you're entitled to it.
This is not getting off on a good start, Jason. It's a public record. Please provide it. This is a simple request.
I understand it's a simple request,
It's in
but I'm
the
not,
local-
I'm not
it's in the local
required to provide it
You are.
until, no, I'm not.
You are to, then you can go to court and challenge our regulations.
Okay, if you want, I mean, why would I do
It's
that?
a public record. Please provide it.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
As to peer review, what I think the board may want to do is choose for the next session a particular topic.
Yeah.
And be ready to discuss that. I don't know if that can be done within, if we get peer review done within like a 30-day time frame. But I also suggest, as we talked about the other day, David, that so as not to unduly delay matters, that if the board is willing to delegate to you or another board member the choice of a peer review consultant, work with myself and the town planner
Yeah.
to select that, get the scope, get it approved, get the deposit in so they can get to work. It works well for the applicant that way. It saves us time. Otherwise, we would have to come all the way back here next time. Maybe have a vote then, so we'd miss essentially a month out of it. So I don't know if the board is willing to do that. In my experience, that's good practice.
To just basically allow me to work with the plan.
Or another member of the board. It's good to have one member of the board. You're the chair, obviously, so you have the broad shoulders, so I think that can be good. But I think it would be a good idea and we can do all the peer review, get everyone on board. But I think it's also important for the board to state what the expectations are for the next session. We were one to do item with respect to the agreement with the abutters. Right. And then I think that another, whether it's traffic or civil engineering, whatever you want to choose as a board, I think when we do that, then the public knows what the expectations are of them. Right. We're just hearing comments on those particular for that session, and then the next session will be something.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that come to mind immediately are traffic, also conservation, stormwater management, and fire safety. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
I asked just, we keep circling around this case that's in court. Is there a date for this court case in court?
My understanding is that there's nothing in terms of an outcome determinative date. No, it's at its early stages, is my understanding.
So logistically,
we'll find out more.
I just want to know logistically, if we're going down a rabbit hole with this process.
Yeah.
If one side of it, if the letter is upheld, this all go away, what happens?
I think I have to know that from the judge. to be
We're,
honest.
we're
That-
trying to
that's-
all get smarter on it, which is
Yeah.
why we tasked the competing parties with providing more memorandum. I've read it too, and it seems to me that there should be real concerns by the board as to where we are right now.
And what does this open up for the towns? Legally, we're going ahead and doing
It
this
says no, it
process.
says the town does not take liability here. But I think we have a path forward on those items, Mr. Chair. I think we're gonna wait to hear from them, give them a full.
Right, I agree. I mean, I think I know what you're saying. I would agree. I would love to know that there's a date where they're gonna make a decision, and we know if we're going forward or not, but what I'm understanding is that's hard to say, and I think it probably is wise to go ahead and schedule, peer reviews and another hearing. So I would, I don't know, that seems to be the format.
Yeah, I mean,
To
I do
vote
think-
on, allowing me to do that, right? to work with the
Right,
planning board.
and choosing as a board whether you want to do traffic, civil engineering, wetlands, probably, might recommend wetlands waiting a little bit. But I think traffic or civil
Yeah.
engineering would be a good call for the next.
I gotta respectfully disagree that what we're doing is
We are-
giving them time that they shouldn't have.
We don't have enough information to decide that. We're going to have an update on that at the next session.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, all right, let's,
I just have one quick question.
okay.
As a taxpayer, I'm a little bit concerned that we're gonna spend money on peer reviews when we don't.
Just for clarity, these guys pay for the peer reviews, we do not. So it's our right for an 40B that we find somebody to do that peer review, the applicant pays for it.
Just really quickly on the timeline, like super quick. So the question of a determinative date by a judge, right, on the current case, as Jason Manos pointed out, we have now until April 8th to close on this. So I don't know that a judge would rule by then necessarily, right?
We don't know, but there could be summary judgment. We just don't know.
But so to wait for some decision.
We're
and-
not necessarily waiting.
I'm just pointing out that
Right.
if that's accurate, that the 180 days has
May
started.
wait. It depends on, we're gonna assess it as the town's council. As to whether or not it's something that is preclusive. From them going forward here, or that we can go forward. And wait and see. There are a number of factors in my mind on that, and. I've been through enough 40B battles to know that if we are going to say that this prevents them from going forward, we better be right.
Just only because I'm one of the lawyers in the land court case, I can tell the board that the next date in front of the land court judge on this matter isn't even until December 20th, and that'll be a status conference to discuss discovery and things of that nature. So there won't be any decision out of the land court anytime soon.
Okay, so I mean, clearly the thing that we need to do is try to continue the peer review, and I don't really see a way around that.
If I may through you, on a procedural matter.
Yes.
It would be our preference to get going on the conservation issues.
Okay.
So we can start the process of developing our notice of intent application now.
Okay.
To give you
That
guys.
has nothing to do with that.
I'm sorry?
That has
No,
nothing
it
to do with
doesn't,
this
but
board.
I mean, to the extent of the peer review that you've just asked the chair to hire, there is overlap.
Only if the two entities have the same peer reviewer, but in that you would be months away. From selecting peer review with the Conservation Commission. I'd still recommend that be at least a little later. To me, it strikes me that traffic and civil engineering are more right for the board's consideration in this. I do think wetlands are important.
Right. Without a doubt.
Okay, well, I mean, having to do that, I mean, obviously we've got a procedural thing here, but what is reasonable then to set in that hearing as far as timetable goes?
Well, I think it depends a little bit on what the applicant would like. So if we did it in 30 days, for example, you're not gonna have the benefit of peer review.
I wouldn't think so, no. No.
If you did it a little longer than that, then we could have their full traffic presentation plus peer review. Or we could have just their presentation on traffic next time. They wanna be back before us in 30 days. And then the following one will be our peer review consultant. doing that.
What is your preference?
On traffic particularly, I expect this to play out in a couple of hearings, so I wouldn't mind just keep it going.
Okay.
Doing a very comprehensive traffic report, to the board and to the public. Knowing that it's gonna be peer reviewed, but my question is, how long do you think it'll take you to get a peer reviewer in place on traffic? I mean, I'm not
I
holding
can't
you.
imagine. Yeah, I think a couple
Within
weeks would be
within a
reasonable.
couple of
I mean,
weeks, and then you have to pay for it. And
Well, we'd love to give you an escrow check to cover your peer reviews.
Only until we find out how much
Right.
it is, and we may ultimately decide to go with one firm that can handle multiple tasks here.
That would
so
be
that would be, or a bigger number, but that's up to the chair if he's the one delegated, and the town planner will have some advice as to who is more familiar with the landscape around.
Yeah, right. I've been in touch with them already. I would like to work with them. Sure. They obviously didn't know what required work.
Yeah, because my suggestion would be to cut you a larger check that would cover at least retainers for each of your anticipated peer reviewers that you know of now. And
If we sign a contract with a peer reviewer, it's gotta be fully funded.
Right.
So, right, so not retainer, it would have to be fully.
Okay, so procedurally then, I think that the board we need to talk about is that, does that sound reasonable for, to nominate one of us and work with planning on identifying really a peer review, so we get that started? There you are.
I can help out with that. I
Yeah.
had a little bit.
Yeah. I mean. It's fine with me to do it. I think it's a second weeks. I mean, I'd be happy to do it. Interesting work with them. What I expect is we're just going to talk to them about who they have as who are their experts in, the different areas. So I think procedure, we'd have to take a motion, second and vote.
So what we just decided?
We didn't decide anything because we need somebody to make a motion.
I
just said I'm willing to do it.
Before we go one step
That's what I
further,
said.
there was a question. from-
Yeah, I just had a question, Nine Tower Road, Jude. First of all, foremost, like, how did this clock get started for these guys? And then second, why are we allowing this to continue to fall this rabbit hole? So that these guys could come up with whatever they've come up in the past.
Well, yeah, I
Like,
mean, I
just
think
very briefly, I feel like Jay touched on that. So that under Mass 40B, Jay's, correct me if I'm wrong, but he used the term color of title. So what happens is 40B allows the developer to kind of move forward, understanding, as I do, the restrictive covenant that's in place.
Right.
That's where I asked, I feel like we're putting a cart before the horse, but as Jay kind of went on, hey, listen, the developer under 40B is allowed to move the ball forward. And as a result, what happens is what Jay said, we could sit here and say, we're not moving forward. But if they win in court, then we're really behind the 8 ball. So it's just a situation where, that's my understanding, that's the cards that are in front of us. It's either we move the ball forward or we say, no, we're not gonna move the ball at all. But if they prevail in court for whatever reason, if they find that the abutter has violated the terms of the agreement, or if it's not enforceable legally, then the town on all the abutters are in a worse position. But I hope I answered your question. Sorry.
That's okay. All right.
I make a motion to have you go forward on peer review.
Second, okay. Motion made for the chair to go forward to work with the planning board on peer review. All in favor, respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so have that. So I'll work with the planning board. So having said that, and having already said, you guys, clearly the applicant would like to go forward. I don't know what's reasonable for the next hearing. You said we're, as far as availability.
If you want to keep it to Wednesdays, because I know that typically works for the board, every Wednesday in November and December is available in the McCullough room. We do have our regularly scheduled ZBA meeting for November 15th and December 20th.
What we have on for the 15th right now.
We have one application for the 15th.
That, the special permit?
It would be good to. If the board's okay with it, I'd like to schedule on a separate night, so we can just do this.
I think that's a great idea, instead of torturing others.
Right, exactly.
That really leaves you with the 22nd is the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's
no one's doing that. So it leaves you the 8th or the 29th.
The 8th, yeah.
8th is short.
I can do.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be likely their presentation on a full topic.
Yeah, that's the question for the applicant.
On the 8th or the 29th.
29th, we might get peer review, some peer review.
I was thinking that,
Yeah.
if we could get peer review in time, that would be preferable.
29th.
Want to shoot for the 29th?
Yeah. Are you good, John?
And that's available.
Yep.
Okay, plan that then.
And then we're in the holiday months.
Yes.
Weeks.
Same time.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll see. Is that here?
No, it'll be townhouse, sorry.
Act like I haven't lived here most of my life. 7
p.m.
And topic?
Topic is
Traffic.
traffic.
Okay, great.
So, and this is not even my part, but I have not done one of these before. How do you even, close a meeting when we're not? This is
Just a motion to continue to the 29th.
Just a motion to continue. Yep. Well, I think I appreciate everybody's patience. I've gotten a lot of questions tonight. I think.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to.
Really quick, do you want to let the planning board adjourn?
Yeah.
Just before you close.
I actually have one administrative thing. We actually moved a court from the zoning board. I don't know if we should vote on one. Yeah, are you guys okay with that? I don't know if somebody feels strongly. I even work right now.
Am I the clerk?
You'd have to, I nominate Mike Robbins to go.
God, first all.
I second that.
All right.
Yeah, you're the worst.
All right, so we have a motion.
Know your friends are.
Motion to not, to.
I put him in for president, so.
I'll pay back. All in favor, respond with aye, opposed, nay, Doug, aye, Doris,
Aye.
Mike,
Can I abstain?
and Williams, aye, okay, so there we go. Yes, do you let's let this be adjourned, sorry.
If you want to adjourn the planning board.
Thank you. Thank you all. A good start. The planning board has adjourned.
Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you.
All right, now
Make a motion to continue.
make a motion to continue the hearing
Until
to
November 29th at 7 p.m.
Okay. All right. Motion made. Continue to the 29th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
You have to.
You
I know, it's a-
Carry around.